Anytime someone calls attention to the breaking of gender roles, it ultimately undermines the concept of gender equality by implying that this is an exception and not the status quo.
Hey everyone, how's it going? So the creator of High Garden Spice, Ray Rodriguez, came out and talked about the issues behind High Garden Spice, really contributed to budget. I just kind of want to say this first and foremost, is it's not the audience's job to care about problems behind production. At the end of the day, they're given the end result, and they have to judge that for what it is. But we're going to read through it. I think a lot of it is just kind of BS. Like, it just seems like it's a lack of talent compared to a lack of budget. But of course, I want you to hear Ray's words first, and then we'll talk about it. To use this video for being kind of off the cuff, I'm not really writing a script for it. High Garden Spice had a very small budget. We were the first show of a non-union studio. If you're mad about the animation quality, it was the budget. Background art, budget. Writing, budget. We literally started storyboarding the first episode before the first script was finished. From this point, it looks like it was damned from the beginning. How do you not have a script before the storyboard? I get it, that you don't want people to work without getting paid, and this is another fundamental issue, is that High Garden Spice was literally just an idea. There was no adaptation of it. It was just Ray Rodriguez's. Some people say it was from middle school, their middle school idea. I've had a bunch of comic ideas in middle school, high school, and they were never fleshed out because they're just thoughts jumping around in my head. If High Garden Spice had a real webcomic, if Ray had put any work into making any semblance of a story on that Tumblr article or whatever it was, they would have had a better product. This was literally just a bunch of ideas. I've said it before in some of my other videos, there are people who have actual comics out there right now that have literal stories to them from start to finish. They have volumes, they have chapters, and they chose this one which had nothing besides concept art. So when we inevitably ran into problems, all productions do, we didn't have the time or money to slow down and fix them. We had to barrel forward and make do with what we had.
What the hell?
This sounds like the sloppiest production of all time. Why did Crunchyroll give them no money? Now, let's be honest here. This is partly Crunchyroll's fault too. Elation Studio, I think that's what they're called, isn't totally at fault here. It was obvious Crunchyroll wanted to push this show out for whatever reason. But also this is back to what I was saying in, I think, episode 2 or something. In my full series analysis, if you haven't seen that, go check it out if you're just jumping onto this video now. Is that High Garden Spice itself wasn't proven by any means. There was no merit behind any of the work behind High Garden Spice. So why Crunchyroll chose them is beyond me. People compare High Garden Spice to an anime because it's on Crunchyroll, but it isn't an anime. It's a cartoon made with the same pipeline as any other American cartoon. Our budget was comparable to a Cartoon Network show, which are usually 11 minutes long and are Comedy Central with much simpler backgrounds and characters.
Oh, is that right? Well, I sure hope somebody picks up that phone, because I f***ing called it!
I just want to say in your face to every single person who said High Garden Spice is an anime. Anime is a cartoon, they're both the same. Literally, this is the creator saying it's a cartoon. And when I and many others said, oh yeah, this should just be on Cartoon Network or something, it has no reason to be on Crunchyroll, here it is. So everything about it is wrong. Really, the best show to compare High Garden Spice to is Onyx Equinox, our sister show, and the only other show made by the same studio as High Garden Spice. Onyx Equinox had the advantage of learning from mistakes made on High Garden Spice being union. It was a lot of the same team and the same pipeline. I've seen, I think, 1 or 2 episodes of Onyx Equinox. It really didn't get to me. The first episode was surprisingly gory, but at the same time, it just seems like Crunchyroll wanted to be like a Cartoon Network or something, or they're trying to jump into that space when they have anime. Crunchyroll is killing it with anime. They're killing it more than Toonami right now. Toonami used to be the place to go for anime, but still, like, why would they even try to jump into the cartoon space? They have no one good enough to write their stories. They're not giving them a strong budget to start with. What's the point here? Crunchyroll themselves are just running into a wall. And this wouldn't be the first time people have had grievances with what Crunchyroll is doing. High Garden Spice's budget should have gone to their translator, who get paid piss poor. What we were trying to make was incredibly ambitious for what we were working with, and we did the best we could. Maybe in another timeline, High Garden Spice would have gotten the budget and schedule it needed to reach its full potential.
You serious?
I'll be a bit of an asshole here and say I think High Garden Spice has very little potential. It wasn't ambitious by any standard or merit. Sage never had a character motivation throughout the whole series. High Garden Spice, if I had to say had potential, its potential was already 0. And that's just me being a little bit mean, but I really do think there was nothing worthy of the show. And also in another timeline, High Garden Spice wouldn't even have roped into the culture war from its first trailer and marked as bad years before it came out. But alas, and this is the timeline we're in, and all I can do is shout about it on Twitter.
Stop it. Get some help.
Ray is jumping the shark here to say like it was caught in a culture war. Most people said it was stupid because they talked about diversity and all-female white people staff when we learned nothing about the show in that first trailer. And then they said, we're going to blow it out of the water. We're going to do something never seen before with 2D animation. They're pretty much lying to you because they had no budget. They knew they couldn't do anything. They knew they couldn't innovate anything. And yet they still brought up a trailer and lied to people straight to their face. I think at this point in retrospect, when people read this Twitter timeline, they're gonna be like, whoa, what the heck are you talking about, dude? Did you see the trailer? You knew it was on there, right? Like, I think it's just a bit insulting that Ray wants to deflect all responsibility onto being, we didn't have enough money. And again, like this weird culture war thing, I think is their fault. It's their fault in general. You see that first trailer, it's all about quote unquote diversity, and then you see the show and it has quote unquote really bad representation of diversity. The only trans character has to vocally say to the audience, I'm transgender, and then every other female character is a lesbian. It's almost to the point of satire. Like, you would think it's a joke, but it's not. Every male is an asshole. Like, what else are people supposed to think about this? Instead of piling on the High Guardians trash campaign, which it is, it's trash, maybe think about what happened behind the scenes to make it that way. Have empathy for the real human beings who did their best working on it, and think critically about who started this hate campaign in the first place. Who did start it? Who is he trying to say started this hate campaign right now? I don't know if there's a singular person who said this thing sucks. Is he talking about Hiro Hey? I don't ever want to call it criticizing. He was just kind of talking about it, right? Like, the show is, I think, objectively bad. And again, like I said in the beginning, it's not the role of the audience to care about what happened behind the scenes. It's not their problem. A lot of people came out and said, what does budget have to do with writing? Writers are paid employees. Smaller budget equals less time to write, less time to correct notes, less time to plan ahead. This is in response to people saying budget has nothing to do with writing, lol. And this is very true. Anyone who's saying, oh my god, just because you have less budget doesn't mean you couldn't write better. I think these people are mixing it up a bit. The real thing is that the writers were bad. I think there's nothing else to it besides that they were literally bad writers. And then in episode 1, it took 3 writers. Ray said by first episode they were already storyboarding, and then they had writers add on top of that. 3 writers made that first episode. So 3 people were put on pay. In reality, they should have had 1 writer. 1 central writer, 1 central director. The team should have been cut down a lot. And they should have gotten, instead of all female team, the right people to write their story. Like, I understand, there's issues with the budget. The budget does hurt them. But you have to look at everything else and say, you guys screwed up on your own end. You shot yourselves in the foot. I don't know why anyone would realistically feel sad for them. There's a ton of replies saying, you deserve better, you deserve better, you deserve better. You can say that about anyone with a failed product, right? Then we have someone, Sophia I'm never gonna try to pronounce that last name. Alexander. There we go. She has another name. Sophia Alexander. To support Ray's claims, same thing happened with Onyx Equinox. Learning our budget was 1/3 of a lot of Western shows is. A big push is why we unionized, because I threatened to leave before production started. There's a lot of nuance to that I can't get into detail. There are good people who worked in that studio. I'm infinitely grateful for their support. This isn't a black and white as it sounds, but know that unfortunately a lot of this happens to other productions, which is why I say it's not the job of the audience to care. If this happens all the time, it's unfortunate it happens, truly it is. At the end of the day, the consumer is still the one who has to pay for the product, that end product. So it's not their job or their role to even empathize with you. It's nice when people empathize with you, it truly is, but it's not the role of the audience to do so. They never have to. They have no obligation to empathize with the problems that were behind production. This goes for anything. I'll just jump into a little flashback for myself. I'll narcissistically talk about myself for a little bit here. Shonen Jump had a contest, what's that called? It was the Tezuka something contest. I don't remember the full name of it, but it was the 100th contest, and I submitted a one-shot for it. Foolishly enough, I read the rules wrong. I put too many pages out, so I had to cut down the amount of pages, but that also hurt the story. But whose fault is that? It's just my fault for not reading the rules properly and not really thinking out the story too hard. You know, I can't go and tell every single person, oh, this didn't make sense, and then just tell them, I didn't have enough time. You know, shit happens. We'll just read a few replies, and then I want to jump into like something about animation and budget real quick, because I was looking up some articles about it, just to kind of like give a little bit of hindsight to this whole thing. This is from Princess Kitten. I'm not sure I understand. You're validating that the show has shortcomings because of its budget, but you don't want people to point out that it has shortcomings. Wouldn't pointing out those shortcomings caused by lack of budget point out that you need a better budget? And then Ray kind of just responds with like a pointless response, because it doesn't really say anything about it. Most people critiquing this show are blaming the team for not caring, for being untalented, being SJWs, being gay trans women. They don't care about the budget, and honestly, they don't care about the show. High Garden Spice is an easy target to fill their boxes for harassment. Ray is strawmanning, pretty hardcore here. I don't know if you want to say calling someone untalented is something like, oh, they don't care, because I mean the staff was untalented. It's just how it is. At least in my opinion, it's how it is. Being SJWs, I don't know, particularly wouldn't call them that at all. Being gay, trans, and women, I don't know. I don't know what to say there. I'm sure there are people who are like, this show is made by a stupid, you know, that kind of stuff. For me, that's not the case. That it doesn't matter that much. They don't care about the budget, as they shouldn't, and they don't care about the show. I don't know. I've made almost 4 hours of High Guardian content, 8 hours if you count everything that's been unrecorded and cutted. I think I care quite a bit. Maybe not the way they want me to, but I think I care. If you're talking about people who are looking for an easy target, there's really no point of explaining it to them. They'll hate it either way. Very true. And people who offer legitimate criticisms are probably trying to help. Artists can't get budgets without audiences / critics. Like No Man's Sky, where everyone was criticizing it and the team turned it inward and tried to tackle a lot of the issues. So the people who previously criticized very brutally turned around and started to support it financially and with time-based investments. This person I think is spot on. If you as a creator, any sort of creative out there, you should be willing to accept criticism from other people. If you just turn around and say these people don't like it because of XYZ and give an excuse for them to hate it, then you'll never grow. There's no reason to. I've gotten so many comments, especially over my High Garden Spice videos. They're not perfect videos, and never would I think they are. They're perfect for me because I can watch it and enjoy it, but I mean, they shouldn't be perfect for everyone. And so people have given me good criticism. Some people just kind of like strawmanning me, all types of stuff. And I try to respond to everyone, and I'll try to be cordial. No reason for me to be cordial, by the way. I'm just saying. You know, I try to respond to everyone about their criticism of the videos. They say, oh, you're off point here. I'll say, hey, you're right, and then I'll kind of give them my standpoint. I'm not going to agree with everyone who disagrees with me or dissents with me, but it is important to at least hear them out and reply to them. Most who have dissented with me haven't replied back, which is a bit upsetting. I feel like if you're going out of your way to comment and leave like some sort of dissent towards me, then I'm going to reply to you. You know, it's no hard feelings or anything like that. At the very least, reply back saying, hey, you're right, hey, you're wrong, or just call me an idiot. It doesn't really matter to me. I really wanted to like the show, purely despite the chuds who complain about the wokeness. Chuds? Chuds? Are you...
I think we're entering the year of the chud. I think it's our time, butts. It's the year of the chud butts.
And I think the budget issue explains a lot for me, but there's one thing I can't quite nail down. Who was the show for? Magical Girls make me think, oh, it's for a younger girl audience like the shows usually are aimed at. Plus the way being trans was explained, but then swearing came in and it threw me off my game. I also imagine being on Crunchyroll didn't help y'all. Yeah, like everything seems kind of wrong about it. It's just like the I'm transgender scene. Again, I've gotten comments saying like there's nothing wrong with it, it's not bad. It's not bad for children, but for adults, they expect way more, and it has a trigger warning at the beginning, or I should say a content warning. So why would such a childish scene be added to this whole story? You know, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. My honest opinion from the standpoint of a viewer who's ignorant about the animation industry, the show was okay. While it wasn't exactly game changer, it wasn't anywhere near as god-awful as some people make it seem. The show itself suffered from its own production issues, but so does the landscape it tried to become part of. How much truly mediocre and sometimes god-awful shit makes it through streaming service that everyone seems to forget about in a week, but somehow this one show got shat on for years, since before we even knew what it was. I did a video, this was on one of my other channels, called How to Kill Your Show Before It Even Starts. But Crunchyroll had announced this High Guardian Spice show. Backlash ensued. They thought diversity was going to sell on a platform like Crunchyroll. Again, when you say you have an all-female writing room, that means you didn't hire people on their merits, you hired them on their gender. And that is not how you choose someone to do anything. It doesn't look anime. It has anime aesthetic, but it's not anime. You can look at it, it kind of looks like Steven Universe mixed with like maybe a mid-2000 anime look. You give a show time, diversity will happen. If that's the aim, and it shouldn't even be the aim of the creator. It just kind of happens. For some reason, their whole career is about putting voices that haven't been heard. But I don't want to hear those voices if they suck. Then they say they're so diverse. I just see a bunch of white people. It was maybe like a Hispanic chick. I don't even know that much. All white people. Show me some diversity in your crew. I'm just saying. And it was about High Guardian Spice. When I saw that first trailer, I was like, this show's gonna die, or people are gonna make fun of it because you came out with a trailer that looked stupid, that talked about your team and how diverse you were instead of the story of the show. Like, people watching Crunchyroll probably care about the story more than like the team behind it. That's just how it is. Until you become prolific, that's when people care about you. They don't care about a bunch of nobodies making a show and then they tell them, like our show because it has XYZ in it. I've been watching Osama Ranking, video coming soon. I think that show would make people care about certain types of people in a way they never expected. You know, it handles it very well. And I won't spoil it. If you haven't seen Osama Ranking, go watch it. It's a great show. Way better than High Guardian Spice. In fact, that's an insult to the show, saying that he's even better than High Guardian Spice, because they shouldn't even be compared. You can pile out excuses for why the show is bad. That isn't going to make the show stop being bad. You tried, you failed, now comes the part to move on. Yeah, pretty much, right? Sometimes you make bad stuff. Not every single piece of medium I've made has been good. To be honest, I don't even think like the first High Guardian Spice video I made was particularly good, you know, it's best effort first. TBH, all of these are compounded by who was delivering it. Potential viewers, Crunchyroll subs, were always going to get extremely critical and harsh on anything done by a Western studio. It didn't help that the reel pretty much focused on reinforcing any potential worries fans had. A lot of anime fans, call them whatever names you want, have a view towards Western media stuff that personal identity and social topics end up being put first and focused on the most, often handled poorly too. Revealing the project to focus on identity of the team was really just a poor move. Also, seemingly not involving any Japanese creator on the project was probably another poor move. I don't know about the Japanese part. I mean, if it's obviously a Western production, it's, you know, that's what it is. But I think this is another big thing too. Like, people who are supporting Crunchyroll want to support the anime industry in the best way possible, because this is what was mirrored throughout all of the internet when Crunchyroll became like the place to watch anime legally, is that if you support Crunchyroll, you're supporting the anime industry. And to see Crunchyroll then turn around and say we're not going to support the anime industry with two works, Honest Equinox and High Guardian Spice, people are going to get a little bit upset. Like, Crunchyroll is a place where these studios should be able to get just a little bit extra money just to help them out. Let's not even talk about how Crunchyroll treats its own translators. They're getting paid pennies on the hour, you know, it's terrible. And of course there are hidden replies, because why wouldn't Ray hide replies? One just says, it shows. Animation quality, okay. Background art, fine. But does writing need a bigger budget? High Guardian Spice's writing is a disaster that can't even be excused. What? Do you need to hire a group of writers how to figure out how normal people talk? Again, this is just the idea that, like, if they couldn't get a second script done, so if they couldn't afford the rewrites of the script, just like the anime industry, I know they're going by Western standards here, but still, just like the anime industry, some extracurricular work probably was necessary. Someone needed to write something outside of work and, you know, fix the script up, write a general overview of the story, general plot synopsis, something outside of work, and not get paid for it. If this is truly like your darling child, it should be Ray, to be honest. It should be Ray to make the whole script, the whole story. Not the script per se, but I mean like the general overarching ideas, the themes, and everything else should have been handled by Ray. That's why I was so upset when Ray did not direct the final episode. You know, this is their idea from back in, what, middle school or whatever. It was very important for Ray to at the very least, take a little bit of a hit to make the story the best way possible. I'm sure like a few nights of just a little bit of overwork wouldn't have killed him. People hate it for the writing, not the animation. Like, I think the animation is excusable. I don't think it's too bad. It's bad, but like, it's something most can overlook. I think the writing was really on the wall, and that's what made people dislike the show. It's really bad. You have people like this, F you and your stupid agenda, like that kind of stuff you take no mind to, right? It's not helpful by any means. There you go, like there are people who will say that, you know. If you're somehow able to give criticism criticism with a little bit more nuance. You don't have to be nice, you know, just saying F you probably isn't good enough. Cool, it doesn't change the fact the whole situation was bad. High Garden Spice isn't the only Crunchyroll original to have this problem. Maybe Crunchyroll shouldn't have tried to enter this space. I think, yeah, they should not have tried to enter making cartoons. You gotta fail sooner or later, so this was their chance at doing so. Nobody said revisions are free. Writing skill was mentioned, and if the skill of the writer is poor, a bigger budget wouldn't have magically made them better. Paying them more or getting the same result with each revision or new writers is just a loss after loss equals wasted funding. Again, yeah, I think the skill of the writers was particularly low. Really, the revisions were necessary and needed. Anyone could have done some writing at home or something like that if they really cared about the show, right? You know, the next day, maybe that happened, but if it did happen, then it's like, Jesus, it's still really bad. If money has anything to do with writing, no independent animation project would have never had any success at all. Stop making excuses. You remind me of League players blaming anything that goes wrong at everyone but themselves. Your show is an ad, a cheap ass ad that does not bring anything aside from representation, which is poorly executed and not even that new. You brought a cheap product to flood the market. Your failure was obvious from the get-go. I don't feel represented by you. I think this is the best one here, my favorite one. Poor craftsmen blame their tools. And I think that's it. So there was so much Twitter stuff, to be honest. But I wanted to just make like a quick note, just a few other anime that have had particularly low budgets or hypothesized to have very low budgets. One of them being a very popular anime, Kemono Friends. I think anyone from surface level can look at Kemono Friends, an episode of it, and tell you this whole show was cheap. But somehow it garnered an audience. Maybe because it was charming enough, the characters were appealing enough to an audience, because the story was kind of whatever, but I think the characters are really where it shined. Now I know I'm comparing anime to cartoon, but I'm just saying in this space, like, there's always breakouts, there's always outliers. Revolutionary Girl Utena, which also won an animation award, despite its budget issues. One big one, Kill la Kill. And I think Kill la Kill is a perfect example of people working very smart. Now Trigger is of course filled with veterans, so they know like quick ways of working around issues that might come across in animation, since they've just been doing it for so long. But if you look at Kill la Kill, sometimes there's some really cheap moments in Kill la Kill, like characters just sliding and panning across places. If something is detached from a character, it just kind of like sliding off them, like just popping off.
Oops again.
Neon Genesis Evangelion was also hypothesized to have a very low budget, or at least they were running out of budget by the end. So people thought, did they just start running out of money at the end? I want to also add that skill is very important when you have a very low budget, or even an average budget. Something like One Punch Man, the first season was done on an average anime budget, around $2 million, I believe. But even then, the skill of the animators, the skill of the director really showed. Despite having the average budget every other anime around this time was having, One Punch Man was able to stand out, and this is because the skill involved was so high. There's a website I like called AndyArtTV.com, and this guy talks about all types of comic books, animation, media, everything in between. So all in all, that's Ray Rodriguez's response to the criticism towards the show, which isn't even saying, oh yeah, we wrote this wrong. It's not even admitting that they had bad scripts at times. I would take it if Ray said, yeah, some of the stuff was bad, but they're literally blaming everything on budget. Yeah, we just didn't have enough money. I think as a creative, this is a damning attribute to have, just to blame everything else. In a different timeline, like Ray says, maybe High Guardian Spice did air on Cartoon Network, and it was just 11 minutes long, and it was a comedy show. With that said, I made a not very quick video. I thought it was going to be quick, but I had a lot to say apparently. Well, nothing new there. I'll definitely see you guys pretty soon for an Osama ranking video. I can't wait to make a video about it. I just have to kind of like think about what I want to talk about. There's so much about it I like. Anyway, peace out. Till the next time.